Everybody knows Mr. Ed.
Hello.
But how well do you really know him? Did you remember his birthday?
Well, what's special about today?
Were you there for him when he really needed you?
I ate some bad hay and I got a tummy ache.
Well, some friend you turned out to be. But you can still get to know Mr. Ed on Nick at Night. Get to know his favorite hobby.
Those Phillies.
Get to know his favorite baseball team.
Those Phillies.
Mr. Ed. Get to know your old friend a little better. Weeknights on Nick at Night.
Here she is, the Lark by Studebaker.
A compact with performability.
You know about performability in the Lark?
Yep.
About the new Lark steering system, new brakes, new front wheel suspension, the Skybolt 6?
Sure do.
How come?
I took a demonstration drive.
Figures. You have to drive the Lark to believe it. See your Studebaker dealer tomorrow and take a demonstration drive.
Tell him we sent you.
See Mr. Ed again next week. And meanwhile, say hello to your Studebaker dealer who invites you to compare, test drive the most exciting compact in America today, the Lark by Studebaker.
You didn't know you needed one until now. It's Nick at Night's Mr. Ed Tote Bag, a lovingly machine-crafted canvas bag. Ed would use it as a feed bag, but you'll want to use it as a beach bag or for overnight trips. It's perfect for toting all your fine totables. This is a genuine offer and a unique Nick at Night service to the TV generation, so order one today. Nick at Night is pleased to offer the Mr. Ed Tote Bag for $14.95 plus $3 shipping and handling. Here's how to order. Visa and MasterCard holders only. Call toll-free 1-800-392-2000. Or send a check or money order to Mr. Ed Tote Bag, Nick at Night Street, Ridgely, Maryland, 21685. This is a limited time offer, so remember the words of Mr. Ed.
Life is a feed bag overflowing with oats. A bag that should never be shut.
And order yours today. The Mr. Ed Tote Bag is available only from Nick at Night.
Just call me Mr. Ed.
Harold, dinner.
You called? Here I am.
You don't think I'm bad, do you?
Stop that and eat your dinner.
The phone is ringing. Shall I answer?
No, just eat your dinner. Good night, Harold.
Oh, horse feathers.
What did you say, Harold?
What's up, Doc? I like you.
I like you too, Harold. Now, good night.
I'm an old meanie, and I love it.
All right, Harold.
Have you ever been kissed by a sea serpent?
They're Mattel's talking puppets. Mr. Ed, TV's talking horse, Bugs Bunny, Dishonest John, and Cecil. Each says 10 funny sayings. You can tell it's Mattel. It's swell.
Sitcom, all ye faithful, a Christmas podcast special, where for the fourth time I discuss 25 Christmas sitcom episodes. Please come and listen as we count down to Christmas. You should see Punky Brewster, the Partridges and Benson. Michael J. Fox will return, and for one more year the Fonz will definitely have one last episode with the Fonz.
Hello. I'm Mr. Ed.
A horse is a horse, of course, and no one can talk to a horse, of course. That is, of course, unless the horse is the famous Mr. Ed. Go right to the source and ask the horse. He'll give you the answer that you...
Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday the 13th. Happy December 13th. Happy day 13 of Sitcom, all ye faithful, where today I'm going back 61 years ago, back to December 1963 to talk about a classic television sitcom. Yes, that's right. Today, I'm here to talk about Mr. Ed, of course. In fact, specifically, I'm talking about the December 22nd, 1963 episode of Mr. Ed, Season 4 of Mr. Ed. Yes, this show, Mr. Ed, ran for multiple seasons, ran for 6 seasons, ran for 143 episodes. A show about a guy who has a talking horse. That's it. That's the entirety. That's the premise right there. There's a horse, and the horse can talk. I don't know if there's ever been an explanation. I think he's just like, hey, Wilbur, I can talk. And Wilbur's like, what? That's right, dummy. And like there wasn't, there's not a demonic possession. Nowadays it'd be like, my owner's dead body died before he transferred his soul into my body. Or I guess he wouldn't say that. He'd say, I died before I transferred my soul into this new body. It'd be something like that. But I don't think they ever had any explanation. I think it's just Mr. Ed, talking horse. But Mr. Ed does hold some sort of like personal connection to me, because when I think Nick at Night, the first thing I think of is Mr. Ed. And I think of my dad and myself watching these old Nick at Night shows and him pushing some of these shows. Like I remember him wanted to get me into Twilight Zone. I remember, and it's not Nick at Night, but him getting me into Young Frankenstein. There are certain things that I remember him specifically saying, let's watch this. And one of them was Mr. Ed, part of Nick at Night. And there's no chance he even knows that this podcast exists. But if you do, Dad, if you somehow stumble upon this, maybe you see a Facebook post and you click on it and you say, wait a second, that sounds like my son. And he's talking about Mr. Ed, of course. Yes, this is dedicated to you, Peppy C. So this show, now I don't remember how many episodes I saw. I probably only saw a handful. I have no recollection of the episode I just watched today, which originally aired December 22nd, 1963. So I'm going to go using the TV Tango website to look up what was on December 22nd, 1963. Now, here's the thing. TV listings, they're not exact here. So I'm guessing, it looks like this website says, we get our results from TV.com, from TVGuide.com, from IMDb. So they must use a bunch of different, in Wikipedia to get a bunch of different, they use these sources to get their information. But what's interesting is that Mr. Ed, now I don't know if this is how it always was, but Mr. Ed did not air in the prime time. This is on a Sunday, December 22nd, and I remember being like, so growing up, primetime starts at 8. 7 is when the game shows are on, or some channels have news stations, but 7, it's Wheel and Jeopardy. It's still that way today, and then it gets to primetime. But I remember Sundays, they tried to push a little extra primetime. It's 7. Specifically family stuff, Disney stuff, and Fox, I think, would do that too. And it looks like that's what's done here. But according to this, Mr. Ed, in this episode, Ed's Christmas Story, aired at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. So maybe Ed was on 6:30 on Sunday morning. Now, I'm looking up on the Wikipedia website, and it says that in 1961, this show started out in syndication. So it could have been just because syndicated shows were, plopped all over the place, and they were plopped in late afternoons, especially on weekends. So maybe that's what's happening here before it got picked up by CBS for its run from 61 to 66. I don't know. Just completely guessing. But just looking at what else was on that night, and I don't have full listings here. NBC had The Wonderful World of Disney from 7:30 to 8:30, followed by Grindel. 'Twas the Week Before Christmas. I don't know what that is. Grindel. Oh, it's like a character. Imogene Coca played Grindel. A sitcom, but it was an hour. Oh, no, it's only a half hour. I'm sorry. And then Bonanza, Hoss and the Leprechauns. That sounds like an incredible episode. Hoss and the Leprechauns over on CBS again. Now, there's only 3 networks. They don't have a full listing, but at 7 o'clock, there was a part 2, Lassie's Gift of Love, part 2 of 2. There at 7:30, a brand new episode of My Favorite Martian. And then there's nothing listed at 8 and 8:30, but at 9 o'clock, the Judy Garland Show featuring Jack Jones and Mel Torme. And then the only other thing listed at CBS at 10:30 that night was What's My Line. Over on ABC, they had The Travels of Jamie McFeeters, The Day of the Pawnees, part 1 of 2 at 7:30. Then at 8:30, Arrest and Trial, a brand new episode, Run, Little Man, Run. And at 10 o'clock, Laughs for Sale. Again, this is still the early days of television. So not a full night listed. Maybe there was stuff. Maybe there were news. Again, this is like, a month after the assassination of Kennedy. So I'm sure there was a lot going on in the world. But, for that Sunday night at 6:30, families could escape and watch a show about a talking horse. This episode is called Ed's Christmas Story because it focuses on 2 things. It focuses on Ed wanting to tell his story of Christmas because he's saying without horses, Christmas wouldn't exist. So we really should be buying gifts for my fellow horses. He made a list. He asked Wilbur, could you please buy all these gifts for my horse friends? And Wilbur's like, no, man. He goes, that's crazy. I'm not going to buy all these. I'm going to buy you a gift, okay? Not these other horses. Wilbur's like, I'm not listening to that. He takes the phone himself. He makes the phone call and orders all the gifts himself behind Wilbur's back using Wilbur's credit, I guess. He uses his account. Because back in, I guess, the old days, he'd be like, this is going to be under Wilbur's account. Okay, sign here. Even though the only person who signed was Wilbur's wife. Wilbur definitely married up. I'm not sure in real life Wilbur could get this lady. But early on, that's what's going on with Mr. Ed. On the other side, Wilbur and his friend, who also was his commanding officer in the service, they're friends and neighbors, I guess, and the wives are friends and neighbors, and apparently they all spend Christmas together because they don't have any kids, they don't have any other family, it seems like, but they're talking about buying Christmas gifts for each other. And the boss, what the hell is that guy's name? Why am I yawning? It's morning, by the way. It's not night. I'm not yawning at night. I'm yawning in the morning. So that character's name is Kirkwood, Gordon Kirkwood, who apparently was not on the early episodes. Interesting. He must have taken over when Roger Addison, when the character of Roger Addison, played by Larry Keating, he passed away. And that's when Kirkwood came in. So I'm seeing people that aren't even like the regulars because there was another guy, Roger Addison, who was there most of the time. And I also wanted to mention that Mr. Ed is credited as himself, but no. He was Bamboo Harvester. That was the name of the actual horse, Bamboo Harvester, who lived until 1970, lived for 21 years. So I guess it was one horse the whole time. I really would have thought there was like 5 or 6 horses that they used for Mr. Ed. There's something nice about that it was the actual horse. I'm thinking, well, then good. He and Wilbur actually had a connection. I don't know. So Kirkwood and comes up with the idea that we just should spend $15 on our wives this year. They bring it to the wives. Oh, and he's like, he says, I think that's very sensible. And Wilbur's like, well, that's the problem. They can't be sensible. Why? Because they're women. Wah, wah, women can't be sensible or something like that. It was a very old-fashioned sexist joke. So they go in and tell the wives. The wives are like, what? That's silly. You're kidding. Wait, you're kidding, right? You are kidding. No, we're definitely doing this. So they go off to a jewelry store. Meanwhile, the women think they're kidding and buy all these gifts, spends hundreds of dollars on them each. And they go to the jewelry store and the guy's like, you can buy this for $100. You can buy this for just $100 something. And the guy's like, he's like, well, what is your budget? And he finally realize that their budget is $15. She's like, do you have anything for us that we could buy? He goes, yes, I suggest you go to the Army Navy store at the end of the street. And the jewelry guy walks off. So they went and bought like a fruit picker and a napkin ring. And that's what they brought for the wives. But they're like, oh, this is our brooch or a pearl necklace. Just tell us what's in the box. And they're like, we got you this. We told you the $15. Meanwhile, a guy shows up and says, Mr. and Mrs. Post, we have all your deliveries. They're out by the barn. And she's like, oh, thank you. She signs for it. It's like, Wilbur, you did buy us gifts. And they look at the list and it's all stuff for horses. He's like, what? I have to go talk to I have to go deal with something at the barn. But I think at that point they realize, oh, no, sorry. He goes out to the barn and he's like, you can't buy all these gifts for horses. I told you this. We need to return all of this. And he goes, Wilbur, I got to tell you the story of real Christmas and how a horse saved Christmas. So we get a story of Santa Claus, played by Wilbur, played by Alan Young. And he's just a poor toy maker who makes some toys for people in his town in the North Pole. And there's just a bunch of mannequin heads, or not mannequin heads, ventriloquist dummy heads. Kind of creepy, but kind of like cool to see. And Wilbur's like, why don't you? I could help you make Christmas good for children all over the world. And Wilbur's like, what? You can talk? Or Santa Claus says, you can talk. I could always talk. He goes, why didn't you tell me? You never asked. So he's like, well, where do I get the money? He goes, you go to Scrooge Kirkwood. He's got all kinds of money. So he goes to Kirkwood and he says, this is in the fantasy dream. Kirkwood's like a Scrooge guy. He's got money bags all over his desk. And he says, why would I help you? He's like, well, I'll tell you what. If I think I could do it in one night, if you give me all the toys for the children's laughter, and if I can't, I'll give up my whole shop and there'll be no more noise. And he's like, fine, you have a deal. And he comes back and Wilbur's like, he used all that money to build factories, to build toys. And it showed like actual footage of men in factories making stuff. And then Mr. Ed was like, they're like, floor manager, hurry up, let's go. So apparently they all know he can talk too. This again is just in the dream sequence, the story. And then he goes, well, now I need to go. And he goes, that's good, Wilbur. I taught your reindeer to fly. And then he teaches him to say, ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Like he's teaching Santa to do all this stuff. So the reason that we know Christmas as it is nowadays is just because of a horse. And Wilbur's like, I'm sorry, Mr. Ed. He's like, oh, he goes, I'm sorry, I ever doubted buying gifts for your friends. He's like, that means we can keep it? We can get them gifts? Yes, it does. But I have to go do something else first. So they go off and buy nicer gifts for their wives. Then he's like, no, I need to go take care of something in the barn. Come on, Mr. Ed, let's go deliver gifts. And Mr. Ed pops out dressed up as Santa. I'm ready to go, Wilbur. Get on my back, you dumb son of a bitch. And, well, he doesn't do that, but, and that's the end of the episode. They go deliver the gifts to all the other horses in the stable, which I guess Wilbur owns other horses. I don't know. This was a very early 60s, light comedy with like just really on, surface level light jokes. Again, it's a show about a talking horse. I don't know what the audience was for this. I'm sure it was massive because it was on for 6 years. And there's only so many things on TV. So I feel like everyone who owned a TV probably watched it for the most part. But was it a family thing? I don't think kids in college was like, did you see the new Mr. Ed? Like the hippies in the 60s. Hey, man, you check out Mr. Ed last night? Yeah, man. I can't think of anything. Yeah, man, let's go burn a bra. Oh, yeah, man. I don't know what I'm talking about. As I said, it is, I want to use the excuse that it's really late. It's not. It's 8:28 in the morning and I need to go start my work day. I'm glad I watched this. It's on Daily Motion, so it's free for you to watch. The whole episode's up there. It's in pretty good quality too. So I put a link to that in the show notes and I hope you check it out. And that's really it. They had a bunch of episodes up there. So if you want to look for other episodes, Daily Motion seems to be the place to go to find some TV episodes of shows that aren't listed anywhere. So I am grateful for people who are posting these things. There's another episode of a show that someone shared on a Google Drive, and it's in really good quality, and I'm going to be talking about that in the coming days. Another 60s show, I'll just say that. But that's it. I think I've done enough here. I think I've talked, as much as I want to, and I think I need to start my work day. So, yeah, Mr. Ed, Story of Christmas. Really, it's about Wilbur and his friend trying to stick to a budget, but ending up, splurging on something nice for the wives, as you gotta do. You gotta keep the little ladies happy. And then Mr. Ed, who really wants to buy gifts for his friends using Wilbur's money, but he has to talk Wilbur into it by giving him the true story of Christmas, that a horse talked the Santa into being the man he is today, and of course all the reindeer. And that also, I think, leaves room for Wilbur to also, believe in Santa, and Santa is completely real in this scenario. So I think that's great. That's just always great. Believe in the magic of Christmas. And even though it's Friday the 13th, still Christmas magic is in the air. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you'll be back for another one tomorrow, because I'm doing it again tomorrow. I'm doing it again on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and blah, 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 blah. We're over the halfway point now. We're 13 in. We have 12 left. I still have 3 guests I need to schedule. One of them I talked to the other night. The others I'm hoping to get, all set up. But that is it for today. So listen, you can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon.social, and Twitter at Geek Mentality. You can find the show at fansnotexperts.com. Every episode on the YouTube channel of Fans Not Experts. Every post of this year I'm putting on Facebook at Fans Not Experts. And you can find me specifically on TikTok at Geek Mentality Mike. I did those completely out of order, but I remembered them all. fansnotexperts.com. That's where you'll find everything. So that's it. I'm done. Until tomorrow, my friends. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And Wilbur, here is my theme song. This is my podcast. I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe. 'Cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time, and I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode.
Fans Not Experts.